Izzy at Minerva. In today's video we're looking at how to rotate the bust dart so that it's located along the neckline. This episode forms part of a series which looks at how to rotate the bust dart on your block around different locations on your block. What we're doing in this series is we're just looking at the aesthetic impact of rotating the dart around on our block. We are not creating a fully finished top. All we're doing is just looking at the technique of moving the dart around. By following this little series, by the end of it, you'll really be able to sort of unpack and understand how to move your dart around to different locations, and then you can try some really fun options at home. In our pattern drafting series, you will need the following tools. These are listed next to me, and these form part of your standard pattern drafting toolkit. In the video today, I will be using my bodice block, which I drafted with you a couple of weeks ago in a previous video, and you will be using your own bodice block. So yours will look different to mine, but the steps I'm going to talk you through to rotate the dart will be exactly the same. For the purpose of this video, I'm using a marker pen, but you need to be using a nice sharp pencil at home. Don't forget that you need to have traced over your block before you start any of this, because we're going to be cutting into it and rotating it around and moving it a little bit. Okay, so we've got our block here in front of me, and what we're trying to do is to rotate this dart here across to the neckline. So we know where our apex is, which is fantastic. The first thing we're going to do is to grab our pattern drafting ruler and just draw a line from the apex, probably to, well, wherever you want really on the neckline. That's just a design choice for you to look at. I'm going to send it maybe 3 or 4 centimeters along from the center front. So draw a line from your neckline to your apex. Next, we're going to grab a pair of scissors and cut out the existing bust dart. Cut down the line that you've just drawn from the neckline to the apex. Brilliant. So remove the volume from the bust dart, the original one, and rotate that around until it's closed up. We've left a little pivot point down at the apex, down at the bottom, so we've got a nice clear rotation point down there. Now you'll see that we have rotated the dart around and we've created and added the volume back in at the neckline. So the same volume that we've taken out has now been put back in to the neckline. Take a piece of paper and just place it underneath your new dart. I now want us to find the centre of this dart, and we're going to do that just by finding the centre point between the two ends of the dart up here. So for you it will be different to mine. And once you've found that line, just join it up nice and accurately with the apex. Now mark a point that is 2 centimeters from the apex along that line. And then I want you to draw in the new legs of the dart from the neckline down to that new dart point, which is 2 centimeters from the apex. I should have mentioned at the beginning of the video that I'm wearing the Montana midi dress sewing pattern today in a Minerva exclusive viscose challis fabric. So if you're interested in that, we do have a sew along tutorial for that, which I filmed for our channel. So do take a look at that. Great, so at this point we have done all the adaptations that we need to on our block, and now we need to make this into a pattern. So grab some tracing paper and let's add our seam allowances as required. So add a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance to your shoulder line. Draw in your arm side as it is. Allow a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance to the side seam. Draw in your waistline and your waist dart. The centre front line will be cut on the fold, so just trace around that exactly. Next, draw in your dart along your neckline. And then finally, trace in your neckline. Next, we need to annotate our pattern piece just so we don't forget what the pattern is called and where the grain line is and things like that. So grab your pen and let's annotate our pattern piece together. To start off with, we are going to just draw our place on fold annotation, which is along the center front. Our grain line is parallel with our centre front. So just draw a nice straight line and annotate that with the word grain line. It's always good on the pattern just to annotate where the apex is, and then label your pattern piece. Front bodice, neckline, dart, cut 1 unfold. Brilliant. Once you've done that, then do the same process with your bodice back pattern piece by adding the seam allowances to your block. You don't need to make any changes to your block because we've not made any alterations to it. We're just going to use that to sew it together. 1.5 centimetre seam allowance to the centre back. Draw in your waist and dart exactly as it is on the block. Add a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance to your side seam, and then draw in your armscye exactly as it is. Add a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance to your shoulders and draw in your dart. Draw in your neckline. Grain line follows the line of the centre back. Annotate your pattern piece to say that it is the back bodice we need to cut to, and then add your pattern name. Once you've created your pattern pieces with your seam allowances for your front and also your back, you can then cut those out of your tracing paper and then cut them out of your calico fabric. Make sure that when you're cutting them out that you also transfer your line markings of your dart locations onto your fabric. Once you've done all of that, you can come back and join me again in a minute. So we've cut out our pattern pieces, we've got our front and our back. We're going to look at the front pattern piece to start off with. Now the first thing we need to do is to sew in the darts. Now if you're not confident in how to sew darts and you want a little bit more guidance, please refer back to video 22 where I talk you through in a lot more detail how to sew darts really nicely and accurately. Do check that out, it is definitely worth looking at if you've not seen it already. Otherwise, let's just pin our darts and sew them. So I've already transferred my 4 dart line markings, so I'm just going to pin them together now. Once you've pinned your front bodice darts, you can then pin your back bodice darts too. Now that we've pinned all those darts, let's go and sew them. I'll be using a contrasting thread, as always with this series, just so that you can see my stitch line really clearly. Once you have sewn all the darts, you can then press each of them towards their respective side seam. The only thing left to do now is just to sew up our side seams and our shoulder seams. So pop your right sides together and let's start off by pinning the side seam and then the shoulder seam. And once you've done one side, just repeat the process for the other side. We'll pin our side seam in first and then our shoulder seam. Now that we've done that, we're going to sew all 4 seams using a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. Brilliant. Once you have finished sewing all those seams, you can then just press them open, all 4 of them, and then we're going to go and try it on. So there you have it, the neck dart location. All we've done is just rotate our bust dart from the seam at the top of the neck and the shoulder and rotated it around to the neckline. But as you can see, that gives you quite a different aesthetic, and but the volume is completely moved out to the top still. Thanks for joining me today as we've been sewing the neck dart and rotating it around the neck point. This has been a great little exercise to do and I hope you've really enjoyed it. As ever, if you've got any comments, please do feel free to pop them below the video. We always love to hear from you here at Minerva. And if you've got any questions, feel free to pop them there as well. This video forms part of a mini-series, so feel free to keep watching every week as we upload every week a new episode all about pattern drafting. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time.